Hello. First time I've done this, so hoping this is working. I can see people joining, so that's always good. And just in case you don't know what's going on, it is World Cyberpunk Day today, and there's quite a lot of things happening. I did a live writing session earlier on, if you might have caught that. A few other people have been doing some live readings as well. We just had some great music just on a few moments ago. Let me just find out who that was, because I really want to get you there, because the music was really good. Bear with me 1 second. It is at coherent_music. It's really good music, and I believe that the album is free later on today for a couple of days, I believe. So do check that out. If you're on Twitter, you're already on Twitter because you're watching this on Twitter. We'll go to @cyberpunkday.com and just see everything that's going on today. I'm sure you'll love a lot of the stuff that's happening. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading some of my Cyberpunk book, which is Neon Helix. There's a copy just there. I believe that's probably backwards on there, but yeah. It's my first published novel and also my first Cyberpunk book. Worth checking out on Amazon. Scheduled to start at 11, so I'm just giving it a few minutes for people to arrive, see how things are going. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask. Having never done a Twitter live before, I'm not sure where the comments come up. I'm guessing they come up on there somewhere. I've got my laptop on as well, which is where I'll be reading from. And just getting things set up. So yeah, I'm going to be reading the first one, maybe 2 chapters. We'll see how long it takes. I've been told I do read quite quick, so I'm going to try and read a little bit slow. Just checking on some of the guys behind the scenes running everything on Cyberpunk Day. Just checking in with them, making sure everything's going well there. I can see we've got a few people coming and going, joining now. And see how things are going. And let's have a bit of a breakdown of what's coming up. We've got some more music later on today. We've got some more writers coming on as well. We've got John Richer, Marlon Siegman, a handful of others. If you don't know, it's a 24-hour event, Cyberpunk Day. So it started off at 12 a.m. EST, which is the American time. So there's been a couple of Australian guys on earlier, there's a few people in Europe and the UK. The Americans will probably be waking up soon, I'd have thought. So I'm sure they'll start joining in with the festivities soon. What time we're looking at? Nearly 11. I'm going to wait until 11 on the dot, and we'll see how we go. So just an overview of the book. It's quite a complicated book. There's quite a large cast of characters in it. When I was writing it, I just had loads of ideas and they just kept coming, so I just kept adding new characters. But it works really well as like an ensemble piece. So each chapter of the book is a separate character. Well, it goes back and forth between them, but there's about 5 or 6 different points of view in it. So it's quite a hefty read in that respect. It's not too long. So the first chapter that I'm reading will be Julian, who is a reporter, and he has a AI sidekick, so to speak. That's sort of his assistant. So yeah, we'll get started in just a second. I think we're going to get going now. So we've got a few people watching, which is cool. So here we go. It's technically chapter 2, because chapter 1's like a prelude thing, but we don't need to read that bit. So we'll start with chapter 2, which is Julian. And let me just get it up on the screen so I can see it nicely. There we go. And here we go. So, Julian. Multiple images flashed before his eyes. Julian Travitz adjusted the headset as it changed between over 100 news feeds from across the metropolitan area, alternating at 2-second intervals. In the background, fragments of news radio stations played into his ears, these changing stations on the opposite second of the images. His breathing slowed to a 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. As he lay across the lounger and took all the information in, his mind picked up key phrases. Murder. Crime rate soaring. Haven, the new party drug. Is AI too powerful? Technology, the new religion. Increase in homeless disappearances, but does anyone notice? He was searching for the next story, something meaningful. Kortzig, Shift visual interval change to 4 seconds. Audio on the 2. Julian spoke out loud, addressing his personal AI. Please, came the response through the earpiece embedded in Julian's ear. Please, Quartzik, if it isn't too much trouble, he replied, the sarcastic sweetness dripping from every syllable. You know, when you allowed memory patterns to map new pathways, creating me into one of the most self-sufficient and leading AIs in the metro, I didn't think my role would be as a remote control, the AI chimed back. And I didn't know the first human aspect you'd develop would be sarcasm, Quartz, but what can you do? I am only what my maker created me to be. In his own image, I guess, Quartzik chirped back. The channels switched at 4 seconds intervals, and Julian took a deep breath. It had been almost a year since he had exposed the tampering of evidence at the Metropolitan Police Department, over 50 cases back to the drawing board. He didn't regret the expose, but the release of Peter Henshaw had affected him and his motivation. Henshaw had been on trial for the murders of several people, along with multiple charges of torture. While some of the cases were less severe, and some even in the process of convicting the wrong person, Julian had to take a step back and consider the repercussions of his actions. New biotech launch tomorrow. The headline caught Julian's attention. It was from the Science Network. He reached forwards and balled his fist around the image, and it continued to play without switching on the interval. Biotech company SciBio opens its doors to the public for the first time tomorrow. It's expected the opening will tie in with the launch of the much-hyped enhanced cybernetic implanting techniques rumoured to be in development. SciBio, founded by Maxwell Owens, Jacob Winters, and Yuri Renko over 20 years ago, say the new system will, in their own words, revolutionise the way we adapt to the ever-changing landscape of cybernetics. Make a note of that, Quartz. It looks like something worth checking out. Yes, Master. Anything else, Master? See what you can find out about the founders too. I'm sure some of those names ring some bells, Julian replied, ignoring the sarcasm. Julian disconnected the headset from the small connection on his right temple. They were one of several implants he had, along with some artificial grafts for aesthetics. They were generally all to help with his reporting, but some were personal indulgences. Sitting up on the lounger, he tapped a few buttons on his left forearm. A display lit up across it, showing multiple controls, a subdermal personal digital assistant. Tapping a further button, he muted the radio broadcasts before another tap illuminated the almost silent room. The humming of electrical service creating a background of white noise. The smell of warm electrics filled the air. The room was a mess of cables and wires which encircled the lounge chair. This was his media room, into which he could tap into any media outlet, television station, radio broadcast, or net stream using the implants in his temple. He found a certain peace within the juxtaposition of being isolated in the room and connecting to the entire world around him, the voyeuristic nature of the net allowing the lives of the world to be laid out before him. I've found what I believe you may be looking for regarding Winters, Owens, and Renko, Quartzit broke the silence. Talk to me. Julian slid off the lounger and walked over to the desk at the side of the room. Well, Mr. Winters is no longer present within the company after an incident several years ago. The official reports say that he left under amicable circumstances. Picking up an empty glass that lay on the table, Julian opened the only door to the room, brushing past a handful of cables which hung from the ceiling like metallic vines, and entered into the main room of his apartment. However, there were reports circled at the time there was an issue with his health, causing him to leave. Furthermore, there seems to be rumours of him going off the rails, one article puts it, and causing several harm to his colleagues, Quartzit continued. Julian moved further into the apartment, which comprised of one large open-plan area encompassing the kitchen, bedroom, and small living space all in one. It was tidy, though a futon bed was unmade and a definite lived-in feel emitted from the walls. A large floor-to-ceiling window covered the expanse of the whole wall on one side, allowing the dim, neon-lit skyline of the boulevard below to radiate in. Julian headed to the kitchen area and swept a hand under the tap, causing a steady flow of water to dispense into the glass. Regardless, since his departure, there is little information about him. In the meantime, Owens and Renko have taken full control of the company and its profits to bring it back on track. What time is the conference tomorrow? Julian asked, taking a gulp of the cool water. He'd lost track of how long he'd been in the media room, but his dried throat told him that it was too long. 11 a.m. Shall I set a reminder? Please. Julian finished the water and walked over to the window and looked out onto the metropolis below. The apartment was on the 54th floor, 2 from the top, and the view was a rainbow of neon, the constant fog which draped over the city, causing the colours to smudge into each other. He liked the feel of this story. New tech that could influence the world would reconnect him with the city and its people. Following his self-imposed exile from high-profile stories, some street-level interviews on the human aspect would allow him to reconnect to the world. Also, if he could find out what happened to Winters while reporting on the Cyber launch, he could add some spice to his reports. Do I have anything else scheduled for today, Quartz? He asked. Considering it's 7 in the evening, Julian? No. However, you have several missed calls from Mr. Porter from the Tab if you'd like to return the calls. Mr. Carl Porter was the editor-in-chief for the Tablet, a news media company where Julian freelanced. I've still got nothing for him, Quartz. Next time he calls, tell him I'll get a new report in the works, but keep the details vague. Yes, sir. And what are you going to do? Julian picked up a dark blue shirt and pulled it on. He paused as he noticed his left forearm. A pattern of lines was forming around the implant under his skin, the subdermal augmentation reacting to his body. You should get that looked at, Quartz said. It'll be fine, Q. It's just settling in. It's showing the starting signs of T-Box, Julian. You know that, Quartzik reprimanded. If it gets worse, I'll go to the body shop, Q. Promise, Julian replied as he pulled his shirt over his T-shirt. Tapping the PDA on his arm, he typed a few keystrokes in, and his hair, a collection of fibre optic strands which changed, shifting from the bedhead mess of short brown curls into straight, shoulder-length, blood-red coloured hair with a centre parting. I want to see if there's any stories on the streets. Very well. I'll run some searches for Mr. Winters and let you know if anything comes up. Thank you, Q. Don't wait up. Julian waved his forearm across the door, unlocking it wirelessly as it slid aside. Outside, the cold steel metal corridor contrasted with the homely atmosphere inside the apartment. They built all the apartment buildings in the area from the remnants of a dockyard just behind Julian's complex. Most of the apartments themselves were old cargo containers stacked in bundles back when the docks were closed, welding them together to create housing. The outsides kept their metallic origins, leading to compact but well-built homes with cold stairwells. As Julian stepped out into the apartment, the sliding door closed behind him. He could hear shouting from below. As he neared the stairs, the shouting grew louder. I don't care if he's missing. I need the Draken rent. I've got kids to feed, you know. Julian recognised the voice of Scully, the landlord of the containers. When I find him, I'll bring the rent, I promise. He has a new job and he's bringing in the credits. This voice was Mrs. Preston. She only moved into the containers with her husband in the last few months, and from what Julian gathered, they'd been living on the streets before Mr. Preston had found work. Julian passed them, flashing a smile of sympathy at Mrs. Preston, whilst avoiding Scully's eye contact. While he had no issues with Scully, he felt he always disliked Julian. The man only came to Julian's shoulders and walked with a slight hunch from working on decommissioning submarines in the dockyards in his youth. His work on the dockyards had given him the bonus of owning several of the containers, which he now rented out. Julian continued down the winding stairs, passing several of the containers, many of which had doors decorated in some personalised designs by the owners to help them distinguish from the cold metal walls surrounding them. He liked the ones near the ground floor, where the residents had recreated the cityscape of the boulevard in stylised graffiti. Getting to the ground floor, Julian pushed the metal gate which opened onto the street, his PDA wisely signalling the unlock code. A rush of heated air hit him as he stepped into the warm evening of the metropolis. And that is the end of chapter 2, chapter 1. Julian's chapter there. I'm 10 minutes in. I can do another chapter, but I thought I'd just check in, see if anyone's got any comments, any queries or anything. I'm having a look, see if I can see anything. Oh, I can scroll up. Lots of people joining. Morning, Paula. Saw your message there. Cool. Thank you, Tan. Good description. Love the voices. Yeah. First time really reading this out loud, to be fair. I've done a quick tests a couple of times, so glad it's going okay. Hopefully it's not too quick. Some people tell me it's a little bit quick sometimes. But yeah. So that was Julian and Quartzig, who were two of the main characters at the start there. Obviously, the reporter going out into the streets, some sort of hints of the Cyber Corporation, which is quite a big part of the story as well. This next chapter is a totally different character called Xander, who is a private detective, private investigator. If you saw my live writing earlier on, I also wrote a private investigator on that one as well. The pacing is good. Thank you, James. So yeah, the next chapter is a little bit more mainly description, less talking. So yeah, it's going to be slightly different, but more, hopefully a bit more film noir-esque style there. A bit more water. Not used to talking this much. Right. So let's get into the next chapter. So this is Xander, or Alexander Draven. Okay, let's get going. Chapter 3, Xander. Alexander Draven had sat in the bar for 2 hours now. He'd received the call half an hour ago. The Chambers bar had called his office in a panic. The Sliders had come in demanding protection money. Since losing his job at the MPD and setting up as a PI, he had found it hard to get steady work, and the bills needed paying regardless. Taking care of Sliders was usually easy work, which meant he found himself here, watching the door of the bar as 4 Sliders sauntered in. The bar wasn't far from his office, but it had never been a main haunt for Xander. Too much tech. The fiery redhead waitress behind the bar matched the flame-red neon decor. A holographic dragon breathed artificial smoke above the centre of the dance floor, bathing the dancers in a smog which doubled as the air conditioning system. Xander drew a breath on his cigarette as he eyed the Sliders walking in. One, Xander assumed was the leader, was more machine than flesh. His chest area consisting completely of metallic chrome, the lights dancing off it like a glitter ball. The Sliders were the largest gang in the metro, comprising of several factions which spanned the entire boulevard. Most of them were small fry, running errands for the big fish which controlled most of the illegal market. The 4 moved into the bar and shouted at the red-headed waitress over the rhythmic music. Nanoseconds later, a blade was to her throat, as the smaller of the 4 jumped frog-like onto the bar and grabbed her. Xander noted his legs. He must have had animal-themed orgs. The other 2 Sliders moved towards the dance floor, the first rolling a small device into the crowd. Xander paused, contemplating the chance of it being an explosive. It was unlikely they would risk such a high casualty rate for some protection money. The device hissed as a gas escaped, a scream from the crowd, and within moments the room had evacuated. Another moment, and the music cut off, leaving the bar in silence. Now, Xander picked up his bourbon and downed the rest of his glass, the burn warming his throat. He stood, brushing his duster coat aside to check his revolver was ready. "Excuse me," he called out towards the bar. "I think you should be leaving." "Get out of here, old man," said the leader, pushing away from the bar. "I may be old, but I'm more man than you." Xander nodded at the augmentations. He'd never understood the desire to have so many changes to your body. The leader dived forwards, fist first. Xander took a sidestep, grabbing the Slider's fist as he did. Using his own momentum, he caused the Slider to fall forward, his face bouncing off the table as he crumpled to the floor. "Anyone else?" he asked, revealing his revolver. And it had an ID trigger lock, assigned to his fingerprints only. It was one of the few advanced technology items he owned. The 2 Sliders on the dance floor raised their hands, their index fingers towards Xander. The fingers then spiraled clockwise into a gun, barrels pointed like children playing cowboys. "Really?" Xander asked, the pity mixture of sadness creating a cocktail of disappointment. Before he could say anything else, a shot fired and ricocheted off the wall behind his head. "God damn it!" Xander dived behind the bar, his jacket flailing behind him as he rolled into cover. The frog released the barmaid and threw her towards Xander as he jumped back in line with his colleagues. Xander checked the barmaid was all right before adjusting his position. "Don't suppose you guys want to discuss this over an old-fashioned?" he shouted over the bar. Several shots cascaded above him, shattering bottles and sprayed a mixture of glass and alcohol all over Xander. "Have it your way," he shouted back. Pulling his revolver out, he tapped the fingerprint scanner on the side with his thumb to unlock the safety, and another double tap on the side registered that his desired ammo type. He fired the gun straight upwards then, almost immediately, he pulled the trigger again. As he did, the bullet, which was on course to the ceiling, had a secondary detonation, creating it to change direction at a 90-degree angle and fly over the bar towards the Sliders. Xander knew the chances of hitting a target were slim, but he counted on the distraction to give him a few moments to slide down the bar and get a better position. He heard a smash from behind the counter as the bullet broke a light fitting on the opposite wall. He crawled quickly down the bar to the far end, the red lights flickering from the damage. "Come out here, old man. We just want the money," a voice shouted. Xander nodded to the barmaid, who was curled up in a ball opposite him. Looking around, he saw a keg of beer attached to a draft pump above, and a gas cylinder below it. He quickly uncoupled it and laid the gas canister on its side. "You guys want to give up now, or after I've hurt you some more?" he shouted, moving the canister down the bar until it poked slightly out, the nozzle facing towards Xander. More shots fired above the bar. Xander retaliated with more bidirectional bullets before he unscrewed the valve of the canister. Within seconds, the pressure of the glass erupted from the nozzle, causing it to spin away uncontrollably from Xander's grip and into the main bar area. Shouts of confusion from the sliders gave Xander the opportunity he needed. Getting to his feet, he managed to take a few careful aims at the panicking sliders and fired. Bullets flew straight into their heads, blood splattering over the last one left standing, the flog. He crouched, amphibian legs poised for action, though his eyes betrayed his fear. "Get out of here and tell your boss this bar is out of his patch," Xander said, pointing to the door with his revolver. He looked at the three bodies on the floor, the blood flashing against the lights stuttering on and off. The holographic dragon swooped down over the dance floor and let out a burst of steam. This was the last straw. The fog turned and ran from the bar. Xander leaned down and pulled the barmaid up. "Sorry about the mess," was all he said before taking the last intact bottle of bourbon off the shelf, grabbing a glass and heading to the table. This was the work he was used to since losing his job at the MPD. The expose wasn't what annoyed Xander. He wanted the corrupt cops to go to hell as fast as the devil could take them, but Henshaw, he'd been killing people for years, and they'd finally caught the bastard. That the piece of shit was walking free, and it was too much. Xander had attacked him and left him on the courthouse steps, and left him a bloody mess. He was still alive, roaming the streets, and that ate Xander up. Not only had he lost the case and his job, but it had all been for nothing. Now, he took any cases that made him money, but his reputation of violence preceded him, and mostly he just worked protection and security services to make ends meet. Finishing a third straight glass of bourbon, he got up from the table and walked out of the bar. The barmaid, who was sweeping up the broken glass, paused to let him pass. "Thank you, Mr. Draven," the barmaid said. Xander nodded in acknowledgement. The cool air did Xander good as he breathed in and let the cold sit in his lungs for a second before exhaling. He heard sirens approaching. He needed to be gone before they got there. 3 dead sliders wouldn't make the headlines, but he didn't want to deal with the questioning that came with a police report. Sliders had been slowly spreading into the boulevard in the last couple of years. Mostly, they were just junkheads who worked for the local gang leaders so that they could get their next org, but they were becoming more and more of a problem. Taking several steps down the street, he passed a few more late-night bars, all of which had the newest barroom technology, which matched their neon facades and holographic hosts. Whilst he didn't hate technology overall, he felt it had too much control on the lives of those who used it. The world saw that the AI judges as being the perfect courtroom system, non-biased, and would only take the facts as proof with zero human emotion. Unfortunately, this system had its flaws. This was clear with the Henshaw case. Sure, the evidence was corrupt, but the crimes remained. Yet the judges deemed one anomaly in the case to be enough for reasonable doubt. Ever since, Xander would only take user-controlled tech as reliable. He passed a few more bars, the neon enhanced by the drizzle which fell. Xander turned his collar up on his jacket against the rain before stopping off at a convenience store. The white lights inside made him squint for a moment as his eyes adjusted. "Hey, Mr. D," the young clerk called as he entered. "Usual bottle?" Xander shrugged, finding it hard to decide if being that predictable with alcohol was a good or bad thing. "Sure. Throw in a pack of smokes too. Not the synthetic crap, the proper stuff. Thanks, Harry." It was more expensive because of the difficulties in growing tobacco in the metro, but Xander could taste the artificial ingredients in synthetic cigarettes like burning electrics. "No worries, Mr. D. I know you like quality." Harry grinned and passed the bottle of bourbon and a pack to Xander. He pulled out a wad of notes and handed them over. "When are you going to upgrade, Mr. D?" Harry asked, pointing to his forearm where his PDA was attached. Its wireless connected credit card system was the most common of all the augmentations. "Never, Harry. I don't want no electrical crap stuck inside my arm. Don't get why anyone would," he replied, his usual response for Harry's daily query. You will one day, Mr. D. I guarantee it. Soon, no one can last in this world without it. Well, I'll be the last true flesh and bone human on that day, Harry." Xander smiled, took his change, and walked back out into the drizzle. He lit a cigarette under the store's awning. Inhaling deep, he scanned the streets. The rain was so commonplace that the streets remained busy. He stepped out and turned to head back to his apartment, which doubled as his office. Located in Megatown, the office was a middle apartment in a large concrete building which remained from the old days before the expansion of high-rises took over the cities. It had stairs and no lift, but Xander liked it for its charm. As he made his way up, he smiled a greeting to several neighbours, but spoke little. While they knew him for helping the local community, they also saw him as somewhat of a thug. As such, he was viewed as more of a necessary evil than a genuinely good person. He could live with that, as he wouldn't have called himself anything else. Arriving at his apartment, he swung the door open and walked in, before locking it behind him and collapsing onto the sofa, which served as a waiting space for any clients. It was pristine from lack of use. And that's the end of the second chapter. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Let's see if we've had any comments. A bit out of breath now, probably talking too fast. Cool. I see we've got a few people watching still. I was going to go and do another chapter, but it's been 20 minutes. I'll probably call it there. Also, I really need some more water. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, any comments, do let me know. I would say the book is available on Amazon. Do feel free to check it out. I tweeted a link to it just before going live, so hopefully you can find that if you need it. There's also a side story which is called Neon Cortex, which is free if you sign up to the mailing list, or you can buy it on Amazon as well. So feel free to grab that if you want. Yeah, make sure you keep an eye on everything else that's happening with Cyberpunk Day. I believe it's also World Mental Health Day, so obviously make sure you're taking care of each other and that kind of thing with regards to that. And yeah, I'm going to give it another minute or so, see if any more questions come through. But yeah, I think we're good. Let me have a quick check on the schedule, see what's coming up next as well. I believe there's a presentation from the Cyberpunk film Venus next. That's coming up on the next hour. James asked, do you have another book you're working on? I do. I have the sequel to Neon Helix, which is the one I just read from, coming out. That's in editing stages now. It's potentially going to be called Neon Blood, keeping up the theme. Set in the same universe, a full-on sequel. I'm also currently writing a fantasy novel, which is totally separate, which is quite fun to do as well. So get me a bit away from doing the cyberpunk sci-fi stuff to sort of mix and match. But yeah, I'm aiming for Neon Blood to be out before the end of the year. Like I said, it's in editing at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. But fingers crossed, that will be out very soon. Let's do a quick shout out for people that are coming up. Also, the people behind Cyberpunk Day itself. There's a handful of creative people looking after that, which is always great to see. We've got some more readings coming up a little bit. John Richards reading from his book, Auxiliary, I believe it's called, coming up. We've got Marlon Siegman, Anna Mockicats, Mark Everglade, loads of people coming up, loads of stuff. I think we've got a couple of comments coming up. Audiobooks when says Ice Serenity. I've got someone doing the audiobook for that, not myself. I don't know, do you think I should do them? Does anyone think of my reading? Let me know. Like the title. Oh, I believe I've knocked the camera. Someone just told me. Don't look at me anymore. There you go. Yes, says Ice Serenity. Ice Serenity is a Twitch streamer. Feel free to check him out. Cool. I think we're about done then. Thanks everyone for joining. Your reading is good, thank you. Yeah, stay tuned to at Cyberpunk Day on Twitter. Feel free to sort of use the hashtag Cyberpunk Day as well to get people see stuff and make this an effective and entertaining day for everybody. I'll be around on sort of social media, keep an eye on things, so feel free to drop me any messages if anything comes up that you want to watch or ask me. Fantastic. Right, I'm going to sign off, I think, and maybe get some lunch. So yeah, have a great day and catch you up later.